Hey nerds, in this week's video, I wanted to showcase 5 unique and budget Tarkir Dragonstorm commander deck ideas. I hope seeing these deck ideas inspires you to think outside of the box with some new commanders, and as always, I'll include key cards if you want to build any of these commanders. Alright, let's get into it. First up is Zurgo Stormrender Mardu Goblins. Now, the original idea came from my good friend Wes and his Zurgo Helm Smasher Goblins deck. Most players think of Goblin decks as being mono-red, and for good reason. There are powerful and budget commander options with Krenko Mob Boss, Polykshan's Mon, and Muxus Goblin Grenadier. Yes, these commanders are great, but you're missing out on some powerful black goblins like Sling-Gang Lieutenant, Frog Tosser Banneret, and Bogart Mob. Now, there aren't a ton of white goblins, and in fact, there are only 7 goblins with white in their mana cost, and they're all in Boros. But white has access to some excellent token support with Intangible Virtue, Inspiring Leader, and Dollmaker's Shop and Porcelain Gallery. Now, why would we want to use Zurgo specifically as a goblin commander? Well, Zurgo is a powerful card advantage engine in the command zone. Goblins aren't known for their long game prowess. Often, they quickly close out games with the help of cards like Impact Tremors and Krenko. But Zurgo adds some mid to late game card advantage that the deck was sorely lacking. Yes, Skullclamp is powerful, but we almost always have access to Zurgo, and there are plenty of ways to sacrifice our Goblin tokens at instant speed with Skirk Prospector, Goblin Bombardment, and Goblin Shuriken. So you can attack with your tokens, then sacrifice them before damage to refill your hand, or after damage if they don't die. And if you don't need to draw cards, you can just sacrifice them for damage, also giving us a win condition in our command zone. Key cards to include would be Krenko Mob Boss, Skirk Prospector, Treasure Nabber, Sling-Gang Lieutenant, and Mirror Entity. Next up is Teval, Arbiter of Virtue, featuring Slime Against Humanity. Whenever I get the chance to build a Slime Against Humanity deck, I have to take it, and Teval is easily one of the best slime commanders. Unlike the other cards that allow you to have any number of them, such as Heir Apparent, Persistent Petitioners, and Dragon's Approach, Slime benefits from you having more slimes in your graveyard and exile, and Teval can let you delve away your slimes to pay for more slimes. Am I saying slime too much? Anyways, Sultai has no issues filling up a graveyard with cards like Glacierwood Siege, Grizzly Salvage, and Stitcher Supplier. And the slimes don't have to be the only thing you can cast with Delve. You can delve Thrumming Stone, if you have the budget for it. It is pretty expensive, Spellweaver Helix, and Locket of Yesterdays to get even more value from your slimes. Now, I think my favorite piece of tech for any slime deck, assuming we can play it, is Surgical Extraction. For a measly 2 life and at instant speed, you can exile any number of slimes from your library and your graveyard and your hand, giving you the ability to play 1 or 2 Slime Against Humanities for a giant trampling slime, which you can then sacrifice to Gerard, Golgari Lichlord to finish off all your opponents at once. Some key cards to include would be Spellweaver Helix, Surgical Extraction, Nantugu Shrine, Glacierwood Siege, and Greater Good. Next up is Shiko and Narset Unified Equipment Matters. Because they're in Jeskai colors and the precon they come in, players will often focus on Spellslinger things with these commanders. Or, I guess this commander. Which makes a ton of sense, since there's some great reprints with Veyran Voice of Duality, Monastery Mentor, and Archmage Emeritus in the precon. However, Shiko doesn't just copy instants or sorceries, but it's any spell. A lot of commonly used creatures in Spellslinger decks, like Monastery Mentor, Third Path Iconoclast, and Kaikar's Wind's Fury, care specifically about non-creature spells. This lets you create creatures that can hold the equipment you're casting, and with access to blue, you can easily protect your commander, and have some access to great artifact payoffs. There are 2 types of equipment I think that would be best. First, you want cheap equipment cards like Dragonfire Blade, Swiftfoot Boots, and Basilisk Collar. These are equipment you won't mind not copying. Well, yes, having 2 Swiftfoot Boots is great, but you want to get as much value from your copied spells as possible. If you have the budget, cheap legendary equipment such as Shadow Spear, Blackblade Reforged, and Umezawa's Jite are also great, since you actively don't want to copy them. The second set is equipment that makes tokens when they enter, so equipment like Nettle Cyst, Hexplate Wall Breaker, and Glimmer Lens. These provide additional bodies when they enter, so even if you copy them, you still get tokens, which is really good. And then you can just load up on equipment payoff cards or copy effects like Forge Anew, Pure Steel Paladin, and Masterwork of Ingenuity. Obviously, the new Corey Steel Cutter is also great here, but it is pretty expensive at the time of recording, so if it goes down, then definitely include it or if you open one. Now, some key cards to include would be Sigarda's Aid, Nettle Cyst, Liberator Urza's Battlethopter, Pure Steel Paladin, and Forge Anew. Next up is Felothar, Dawn of the Abzan artifacts. Now, Abzan isn't known for its artifact prowess, but they share similar themes. Both have a counter theme with either +1/+1 counters or charge counters, want to sacrifice cards, and can easily recur big threats from the graveyard. So it felt like a no-brainer to build a Felothar artifact deck. You get powerful sack outlets and a payoff in the command zone, and an easy way to grow your artifact creatures. Now the tricky part will be balancing the artifact and counter payoffs. You'll want to include +1/+1 payoffs with Envoy of the Ancestors, Temperamental Oozewag, and Abzir Falconeer. That way you can get through with your artifact army. But you'll also want cheap artifacts to sacrifice, like Ichor Wellsprings, Mycosynth Wellspring, and Prize Statue. You can also sacrifice artifact tokens made from cards like Bristlebud Farmer, Academy Manufactor, and Mere Battlesphere. Modular creatures such as Arcbound Ravager, Arcbound Crusher, and Arcbound Reclaimer also get a massive benefit from counters. Now, suppose you want to add an infinite combo. In that case, Experimental Confectioner, Peregrine Took, and an artifact sack outlet can give you infinite creatures and artifact enters and leaves triggers. It's a really cool combo. Now, key cards you'll want to include would be Ichor Wellspring, Sir Ginger the Meal Ender, Throne of Geth, Arcbound Crusher, and Evolution Witness. And finally, we have Eshki Temur's Roar Infect. I decided on Infect for two reasons. First, if you can give Eshki Infect with Corrupted Conscience, Triumph of the Hordes, or Grafted Exoskeleton, you can easily one-shot the table out of nowhere. This is because Eshki's the one dealing damage, which triggers Infect and other effects like Lifelink. And the second reason is you don't see a ton of Temur Infect decks, so I thought it could be fun trying to build one. Now there are a few ways you can build Eshki Infect. One option is to play a more traditional Temur Good Stuff deck with the Infect payoffs to win on the spot, but this feels more like a Temur combo deck to me. I would rather lean hard into Infect and Proliferation so you can grow Eshki and spread any early poison counters you can get on your opponents. First, you're going to want some cheap evasive Infect and Toxic creatures to get this poison ball rolling. Creatures like Blighted Agent, Viral Drake, and Tainted Observer. Next, you'll want the big Infect creatures so you can trigger Eshki's ability. I would suggest adding Tyrannix Rex, Glissa's Retriever, and Phyrexian Swarmlord. If you have the budget, Blightsteel Colossus is always a blast to hit someone with. Well, maybe for you, definitely not for them. And finally, ways to proliferate Eshki's counters and the poison counters you've given to other players. Ideally, you'll want to add proliferation that serves another purpose. So cards like Experimental Augury, Unnatural Restoration, and Tezzeret's Gambit, which not only proliferate, but also provide card advantage. I would also want to add repeatable ways to proliferate with Inexorable Tide, Contagion Clasp, and Staff of Completion. Key cards to include would be Grafted Exoskeleton, Corrupted Conscience, Inexorable Tide, Dreamtide Whale, and Venerated Rot Priest.